What's gutsy mean to you?
I think gutsy means that we're willing to listen to our heart and take action in small ways.
Welcome to the Gutsy Podcast, the show where you learn how to own what you actually want and shift the mind junk that's been holding you back. I'm LauraAura, keynote speaker, coach, and your guide to help you get clarity, build confidence, and make the gutsy moves that change your life. Each week, I'm going to help you simplify things by teaching you how to get out of your head while stepping into action. This way you can achieve all those life shifts that you've been overthinking. Your desire, that drives you. But gutsy, that's what gets it done. Have you ever looked at your life or your business and thought, gosh, this works, but it just doesn't really feel like me anymore? Not because really anything's wrong, not because things are falling apart, but because something in you has shifted and now what you've built doesn't quite fit the version of you that you're becoming. That is a confusing moment. You start questioning yourself and you wonder if you are being ungrateful or impulsive, and you tell yourself to just stick with it because you know what? It's working. But that feeling, that nudge that you're pull, it's actually the signal. In today's episode, I am joined by Natalie Benamou, and we're talking about what it really looks like to pivot. Not just the big obvious changes, but the quieter ones. The moments where you tell yourself the truth, let go of what no longer fits, and choose something different before burnout or resentment makes the decision for you. We're talking about permission, trusting yourself in real time, and about creating a life that actually feels good to live, not just the one that looks good from the outside. Natalie is a best-selling author, strategic growth connector, speaker, and founder of HerCsuite, a portfolio career network for women leaders building what's next. After generating over $110 million with an M in revenue in the trade show industry, Natalie launched HerCsuite to help women make their next bold move, whether it's landing a board seat, launching a business, or building a purpose-driven company. Natalie is also a serial podcast host, and her second podcast, Women Leaders on the Move, is a top 25 podcast with over 260 interviews with amazing women leaders. I had the honor of being on Natalie's podcast, and we talked about going from stuck to making your next gutsy move, and I've linked that below in the show notes. If you've been wondering, you know what, is it time to make a change? Am I ready to do this? Today's episode might give you the clarity to get that answer. Let's get into it. Hello, Natalie. Welcome to the Gutsy Podcast, my friend.
LauraAura, I'm so excited to be here.
Oh my gosh, this is not our first rodeo. I
Not.
had a beautiful opportunity to be on your show recently, which we just had such a great conversation. I'll link that in the show notes so we can cross promote and cross share the love there. So it's just a joy to have you back here on the Gutsy Podcast.
Well, I'm a huge fan, and it's an honor to be here. Thank you.
You got it, my friend. So we're talking about pivoting, something that you and I are quite familiar with, maybe more times than we care to count, but always leading to the right direction. So let's start a little bit with your story. You had a pretty big career pivot, almost 3 decades in an industry, totally shifted. So take us back to that time frame. What happened? What led to that?
I was thinking about this question because I get asked it a lot, and I had wanted to be an entrepreneur for a long time. I got my MBA a long time ago, and before the internet was even a thing, and I had this idea, and everyone was like, that's never going to work. And so I didn't pursue it. And then success, as one would expect, happened in sales and in my business. And so I kept going along. And then the biggest pivot of all happened pretty much 6 years ago, which was COVID. And,
Mm.
you know, everything stopped in my industry. And so that was really the opportunity. And I always say doors close, windows open. And when we're pivoting, it's up to us to decide to fly through. And I chose to fly through and do something totally wildly different than what I had done for almost 3 decades. But I had it in my heart along the way. And I know you talk about this a lot. Like we put those things down, and we can't do this and can't do that. And then sometimes when there's nowhere else to go but up, you take that opportunity to pivot. That's what I did.
You know, the universe has a funny, not funny way of pushing us to where we need to go and making us make those decisions if we don't listen. So
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious. You said it was on your heart along the way. What were some of the, like, what did that feel like for you? What was on the heart? What did that sound like? What did that feel like? So we can kind of see some indicators here.
Well, I have always had this entrepreneurial spirit. So I started with a company and I grew it from me to 19 people and 33,000 square feet in Chicago, and was kind of running, I wasn't kind of, I was running the business. And so I think I had it in me. In fact, you know how you do those strength finders or whatever, all those different
Mm-hmm.
tests, and it would always come back Maverick. And I'd be like, huh, isn't that interesting? What does that mean? Maybe it means that I don't follow rules. I don't know, because I don't. So I think I always had this idea of like, you know, kind of as long as I didn't have a lot of restraints, the success would happen for me and my team, and things would go well. So I think there were these signs of like trying, but those were safe signs, right? Because I had a company behind me, and going out, as you know, as an entrepreneur, it's a little less safe when you're doing it on your own. So
It's quite less safe in many ways,
super not.
but also, gosh, when you have that part of you, when there's that itch, when there's that pull, and the entrepreneurial spirit is in you, or the bug bites you, it becomes at some point more painful to not
Yeah.
itch it or scratch it or
Hmm.
figure it out than it does to ignore it, doesn't it?
Yeah. I think the beautiful thing in this thing we have called life is we have those doors that might close on us, and we do have choices we can make. And there's certainly upside and downside. When you're an entrepreneur, there's plenty of downside before you get to the up, right? But when you do, those little glimmers, and someone calls you and says, you know, thanks to your, actually, I had this happen to me. Someone sent me a note and said, I've been listening to your podcast, probably your episode. It made me feel empowered. And I left my job and I'm starting a new job closer to my house. And I just cherish those moments because you don't know, you know, and it's not because of those words that I do the things I do, but those are the shining moments that are like, you know what? Keep going, right? You need those little moments to say, keep going, because someone needs to hear it. So, and I honestly, she sent it to me around your podcast. So I bet it did have an influence on
Oh,
her.
that's it. See, I love that. I love an impromptu random message. And I don't know about you, but I find those always tend to come through
Yeah.
about the time where, like, I don't know,
Yes.
my confidence is
I was
dipping, or
like,
I've had a bit of a dry spell where I'm like, is anybody listening to this? Does this actually matter?
right?
Just this last week, I've gotten probably three or four
Oh,
um what feels like random messages, but nothing is ever random.
right.
That is just like, you know what? Yeah, this is what it's all about. And I know it's scary to pivot. I know it's scary to go out on your own, but it's moments that like that I don't know, they're just like checkpoints along the way that are, it's like the universe nodding, being like, see, keep going,
Keep going.
keep leaning in,
Hmm.
keep going, because this is awesome. There's so much more ahead of you.
Yeah, so true.
You made a big leap going from corporate to entrepreneurialism, all on your own. Safety net gone, regular
Yes.
income gone. There's a lot of gals that listen to the show that are kind of teetering on that point, right? Like the picture perfect career is not it anymore, or they've done all the things that they were supposed to do, and there's something new calling them. What thoughts or guidance do you have if you're in that transition of letting go of all of the perceived and sometimes very real safety that's around leaving a corporate job?
You know, I think about this a lot because figuring out what to do next is sort of the pivotal thing that I talk about a lot. And the first thing is you have to really get grounded, and I know you do this so beautifully, of listening to what matters to you. And at a certain age and a certain point in our careers, we decide those things aren't important anymore. And it's really interesting. I've lead this mastermind next, which was the inspiration for the book, Power of What's Next. And one of the women, she's over 60, and she she was looking for a career. She wanted another corporate job. And kept telling her, well, you're overqualified for this and you're overqualified for that. And she told them, I don't care about the title. Having meaning in my life and doing something meaningful for me is what matters. And she did land the role that she wanted. And she's a beautiful person. And I just appreciate her so much. But I think when we release those things that we've been told linear, you have to do it linear. You have to look a certain way. You have to do a certain thing. You have those don't let those hold you back from making those choices. So as you're thinking about which direction, you have to be open to the messages of the directions. And they might
Yeah.
point in a couple ways. And that's what's really interesting. It may not be linear anymore. So
Yeah, I think it's really great to ask this question of like what matters to you now, because what matters today might not be what mattered 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago. Your life has changed, kids, spouse, location. I mean, a million things have changed in those years. And I think it's really important too. We have to be honest when we ask ourselves these questions. Because I don't know about you, but like sometimes when I'm working with the gals, it's like they start to answer and then you can see or feel that pullback. And I think it's because on the other side of that, if you're honest with yourself, you have to take some kind of action to support that on the other side. So the honesty with self is a little bit intimidating because that means we have to do something about it, or at least be willing to do something to make it work.
yeah, and I think one of the traits that I think is really important to tap into is being a curious learner. So, you know how you learn about other people? What about being curious about yourself? We always ask other people, especially in podcasting. I'll ask a million questions, but do I ever ask myself these questions? No. So, I mean, I think about them, but I don't ever like really pause and ask. So, be curious, a learner about, where you want to go, and also be okay that tomorrow may not look like today. And I think that's the thing about this idea. That's why portfolio careers are so beautiful and wonderful, is that it's like you do not have to do the linear thing anymore. You can be a multi hyphenate, and it's actually everyone is now. No one's doing that one thing, or that's an overstatement, but people are doing things that light them up in different ways, and tomorrow might be different. And so, even in my business, I've done some pivots and adjusted and paused and all the things. And so what got us here isn't going to take us there. And what gets us there tomorrow isn't going to, might be different than where we are today.
Yeah. When you've mentioned linear a couple of times, I'd like to
Mm.
dig into that a little
Yeah.
bit. How would you define linear? And you don't have to do things in a linear way.
Yeah.
Have a little bit of context there.
Well, I think in a corporate context, you are going upward, right? You are taking the steps. You might do a ladder or a lattice where in a big corporation, they encourage you to try out another department. You might be in finance and then go into marketing or whatever those things might be. But traditionally, we were kind of brainwashed to think we're going to go this way. We're just going to go vertically linear. So not like linear, lines can look different for everybody, but in this vertical path, and it's one thing.
Hmm.
And so you're on this thing, you're trying to get promoted, and then you're doing the next thing, and then you're trying to get promoted, then you're doing the next thing, and then and in today, I don't think that matters in this, certainly not for younger people. My daughters are in their 20s, and it's not at all the same as, what I kind of came along with. So I think that's where I was going with linear, is that it's the one thing and you're going in one direction. Or maybe you're going to the side, but you're not going like, Jenga puzzle where you're like, you got the pieces. Although that is what we're doing today.
Yeah. I when I think back to when I was kind of in a what I might consider a linear trap or what felt like it was building things the way that I thought that I was supposed to.
Hmm.
So from a business perspective, entrepreneurial perspective, with my first business, it was very much start the business, Oh, when are you going to hire your first employee? Get the first employee. Oh, when are you going to get your next employee? You get your next employee. Oh, when are you going to get an office? We got an office. You know what I mean? It's like that very like follow the rule book of how to run a business. And at that point, freelancers were not really well known. You know what I mean? Like that wasn't a super well known option. And the accessibility to freelancers was not as wide. I mean, right, I could literally open my phone right now and get a freelancer for anything, anywhere around the world. Back then in '07, not the thing. That's
No.
not how things were working.
Yeah.
So, I just thought that that's how you were supposed to do it. And so we just kept adding people and we just kept adding services and we kept expanding and we kept making things bigger. And all the while, I was completely ignoring the fact that I honestly freaking hated most of that. But I wasn't willing to admit that. I just because I'm like, well, if I want to be successful, this is what I have to do.
Well, I'm so glad you brought that up because there's always mistakes and failures that we have along the way and lessons learned. And I had two really big ones. So
Mm,
I'm going to share some juicy behind the
please.
scenes. So, along the lines of what you had, I came from a big team. I had a big team. I had always had a team. And so I thought I had to have a team. Before I even really had a product, before I had a very small, launch, so I had a bunch of full-time people. I had a fractional CTO or, fractional. I had all these people on the payroll when there wasn't the revenue. And so I'm self-funding, it's going one way. And so I think, if we think about lessons learned about this linear thing is just you're enough. When you start with that mindset. You're enough. And then build. And then maybe you didn't, in 2007, it was very different than, 2020, 2021. But the second thing was I thought I had to do a raise. I thought I should do all these pitch competitions. And I did the pitch competitions and I went into Delaware and I became a Delaware corporation. Then I got out of Delaware. So those are a few pivots business wise of lessons. And you learn along the way and it gives me the opportunity to share this here. So someone might be like, oh, I thought I was supposed to raise money. I don't have to. No, you don't. Maybe you do. I don't know what your business plan looks like. But all the things, I watched Shark Tank. It was my favorite show, and Power of Broke with Damon, which is not a good idea. But I thought, well, he always talks about this, so I'm just going to go all in. And you see what is on, around you. It influences us, and it's not always the best, to follow, but you learn, and that's okay. So don't be afraid to fail, I guess would be another pivot lesson.
For
But fail
sure.
fast and move forward. It's like,
Well, that's the thing. I mean,
because
if
I
you
kind of I held on to it a little over too long, and it's okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Yeah.
no, I've done the same thing where it's like you don't I don't know, there's something about like you just don't want to admit that that's not what you really want.
Yeah.
So you just hang on,
Yeah.
thinking and waiting for something to change. All the while, that change is not coming. not
It's
not the change that you think is coming anyway.
right. Yeah. It's
The
going to be
change
different.
really happens when you let go.
Mm.
How did you know? Because I can already hear someone listening right now saying, well, how do I differentiate between knowing if I need to make a change or not, knowing if this is right or not?
Well, I think, and you talk about this on this show about how do you feel in the morning? How do you feel at night? What's your energy? It doesn't feel good if you are always feeling depleted, if you can't seem to catch up, then maybe that's the time where you need to look at other options. It doesn't mean that what you're doing isn't right, but maybe you need some extra support. I know solopreneurship can be really lonely, and we always want to have someone, I'd love to have someone tell me, and I'll just do it. Like for once, I want to just go volunteer because volunteers, they just tell us what to do. And I think for real. So, so I think, with those ideas in mind, I think that's something that you just have to listen and be observant of how you're feeling, how are you showing up, Are you excited for conversations, or are you feeling drained? Do you dread getting on another Zoom call, or are you excited because you get on a Zoom call? Right? Those things. Ask those questions. Then you'll know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, answer it honestly. It doesn't mean that you have to
Yeah.
change it today. Doesn't mean you need to pivot hard tomorrow. It just means like, okay, I've got some indicators. My body is speaking. I'm noticing what's going on. This is pretty consistent. I'm not just having a bad day, because sometimes that happens too.
Mm-hmm.
And then just be willing to lean into that. Like, I think sometimes a misconception with pivot, and I'd be curious on your take on this. I think sometimes a misconception with pivots is that it's huge and it's like a big 90-degree and it's like, like a flip of a switch. I think sometimes pivots are slow and methodical and kind of behind the scenes at the same time. I don't think that there's a right or wrong way to pivot. What thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think both are true and both are right. It depends on the circumstance, right? There could be some major thing that happens that you have to make a big decision and you have to move forward, or you are making those pivots. And to me, a pivot could be, I'm just going to say no to that today. I'm not going to say yes. I tend to want to say yes. And I really do want to help so many people, but sometimes no is all the sentence that you need, and that's a pivot, because perhaps you were going to do something and then you decided no, that's not going to work, and that small thing opens up more space for something else. You get more space. So I think that the behind the scenes are happening. It's happening all the time. We just don't realize it. We may not be thinking of it in that term of a pivot, but it could be.
I love that, because we don't realize how often we're pivoting. I mean, an entrepreneurship is a constant pivot. I mean, I don't know who you are if you're not pivoting. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
yes, it's great to get to a point where things are working, but then even eventually those things evolve and we
Mm-hmm.
pivot. So I love how you brought it all the way down into, I'm going to say no instead of yes. That's a pivot. That's going a different direction than what you were typically going to be going in.
Yes.
And therefore we have a pivot.
Yeah. And for me, it's simplifying and doing less, which is a big pivot, because I tend to be like, oh, we're going to do this is going to be great. And then I'm going to do another one thing. This is going to be great. But this is good. And then you're like, well, is it? Or do we need to just, recognize that maybe that's not in the season, right? So I think
Mm,
pivots can be seasons too, right? You can think about where you are today. And again, we talked about this a little earlier, and where you're going to go, and it might not be the same.
yeah. How do you recommend that somebody maybe evaluate if it's the right time to pivot or not?
I think, and this is one thing that our friend Adrian does really well, is you really need to know your numbers and not overlook that, and be real and ask yourself the numbers, because we might think we can't do something when we can't, or we might need more of flexibility and things like that to be able to do what we want. But if you don't know the numbers, that it can be a very dangerous place to be. What if you make decisions on your 401k, for example, or just doing things that you think won't matter, but they do have big implications in the future. So I think that's the first thing, is really getting clear on your numbers and understanding what is really important to you. I have a friend of mine that does a bucket list before you retire. And I think that's a really interesting idea. Like, what is on your list that you want to do? And what's it going to take to do that?
Tell me if any of this sounds true for you. I feel isolated trying to build this thing on my own. I'm too close to the problem to find the words, and I can't diagnose myself or figure out how to get out of it. Gosh, I could really use support to ground me through the process. I know what I want, but I get scared or want it to be perfect, so I stopped moving. I'm tired of spinning, avoiding, and staying busy instead of actually moving forward. How many times this week have you said one or all of those things to yourself? These are common denominators with the women that join Auraline. This is a mastermind space for women that are already in motion in their business and they want thoughtful support as they evolve and expand into what they're building next. You're on the verge of a breakthrough. You can feel something big coming in. You just need some help simplifying it, figuring out where to focus, and getting back on track whenever your brain wants to do that mean girl squirrel thing. And you know what's possible when all these things come together? Well, some of the gals in Auraline have done things like launch their new LLC after completely leaving their corporate gig, booked a speaking gig at their full rate, and secured a 6-figure contract with another one on the way. These things didn't happen because they added more to their plate. They happened because they got really clear about what it is that they wanted. We weeded out all the junk that was in the way, and they started making intentional moves to build this next chapter their way. You know you're ready, and I've got a space to support you. Go to LauraAura.com/mastermind to learn more and get enrolled today. There's a reoccurring theme that's coming up today that I'm slightly obsessed with in the best of ways. What matters to you? Yeah. I keep hearing that coming up. Like, we have to be honest about what matters, because then we can make decisions and pivot to either get on course with that or to course correct to get closer to it. But if we're not first clear about what it is that matters and what we really want, and I think that's with your time, with your energy, with your resources, with your lifestyle. I mean, that can go into a lot of different categories. But if we're not clear about what it is that we want, you could very easily end up with 15 products that you feel drained by trying to keep up with all of them. And half of them are working and half of them aren't. And then you're shaming yourself because you feel like you're a terrible business owner. You know what I mean? Like it literally can happen that quickly.
Yes. Yes. And the thing I would say for the listener is someday is now. And especially if we've learned anything in the last 6 years, someday is now. So knowing what matters is really important, to not put off that trip because you're thinking you're going to wait until you retire, or not put off learning something really interesting like speaking or being a podcast host or being an author or doing something outside your comfort zone. You're pushing it off. Someday is now. Make that one small gutsy move to build on that. But I think life is so short. Don't wait.
Yeah. Yeah. The pivoting is, I think, mostly uncomfortable because it's new. Not because it's wrong, not because it's the wrong time. It's just different than what you're used to. And especially if you're going against how other people do things, or the expectations that somebody has put on, or gosh, I'll tell you, one of the maybe more wild pivots that I've done. I don't even know if I shared this with you on your show. I bought a commercial building. Like in the midst of
this.
Yeah, okay. Well, we're gonna go here.
Oh my
so
gosh.
in the midst of COVID, 22, I purchased a commercial building with the intent of building it out in this gorgeous I've got the renderings to show it, co-working space. So there was a co-working area, there was an event space, there were conference rooms that you could rent, small offices that you could lease. It was awesome, right? And we shared it with the community. The Chamber of Commerce came in and did a story, right? Like everybody knows. It's very public. I'm all about like documenting the journey. So I'm sharing the journey this whole time. And this was about the time that I decided that I was going to sell my agency. After I made that decision and things were moving forward with it, I got this feeling in my body that was like, you don't want that building either. And I was like, are you shitting me right now? Like, everybody knows. People were on a waiting list. Like, I've spent a lot of money, invested a lot of money in like preparing for this construction. And I just didn't want to do it anymore, because I realized, and here's the why clarity is so freaking important. What I realized during COVID in my pivot was that I don't like being a boss. I don't like the responsibility of having a lot of people under me or with me or on my team. You know what I mean? Like it, I don't like that. And running this building would mean I would have to have employees. Unless I was going to be there all the time, I had to have employees. And I'm like, this goes against everything that I just reworked. Literally everything. And so I was like, this is just going to be a distraction. This is a distraction. And it's taking me away from the thing that I actually want, which is speaking and coaching. And so we put it up for sale. I told the community, hey, this is what we're doing. This is not it anymore. Told the story about it, made a few podcast episodes about it, sold it, washed our hands, and walked away. And it was a hard pivot because my husband and I were building this out together. So it was, we were emotionally invested in it, right? We had done a lot of work with it. It was a lot of excitement, in town about it. I have zero regrets, zero freaking regrets. But if I would still have that building right now, there's no way I would be where I am right now. And two, my life and my energy, my finances, my overall outlook on life, I think would be very different right now. So pivots sometimes, yes, are those little tiny things in the background, but sometimes they are the hard decisions that we're avoiding.
Yeah, when it's not working, you the faster you can address that. And I'm so impressed that you just moved forward and didn't do it, because so many people would have felt they had to, because everyone knew about it. Everyone was counting on it. The community knew about it. You had a wait list. Like, you gave all those reasons, but you knew in your heart that that wasn't right. Amazing. Amazing.
Thanks. I chalk it up to I went against that enough times in the past to know what it feels like on the other side. And I just had this realization, like, I'm not willing to let myself down anymore. And I think that that's a big thing that we have to talk about when we're talking about pivoting is, who is this for? Am I going to keep doing this because of somebody else? Or am I ready to pivot for me? And I think sometimes that's the mirror that is a little bit hard to turn around and look at.
Yeah, and I would say also, if it's something you've been doing or you've always wanted to do, and then you pivot and you think that that's the right thing, and then you realize, like, I just had this no moment because it was something that came easy to me, and I thought it was aligned, and then I started looking at it, I'm like, it's not aligned, it's not feeling right. But I could have easily have stayed and done this thing and had the same feeling that you had. And it was, at first I was really nervous. And then once you do it, you feel so free.
Yeah.
You think, wow, okay, I have more space now to do the thing that I'm being drawn and pulled to.
Yeah. No, I think that's one of the big things is now I have space. I mean, time is a weird thing to begin with. And then we're filling every nook and cranny in every capacity. And it gets wild very quickly. And it's like when you really stand up for yourself and choose what's right for you, you get that time back. Now it's our responsibility not to fill it up again. It's a whole conversation for another day. But like
Yeah.
the capacity to do the things that you really want to do, like the pivots that you've made gave you the time and the space to be able to build what you have now.
Yeah. And for me, it was really lucky because my oldest daughter, and I've talked about this on my show, but my oldest daughter was very sick for a long time. She was bedridden for 4 years. They didn't know what was wrong with her.
Wow.
And it gave me the freedom to be able to be there 110%
Yeah.
for what she needed. And now she's living independently, and it's amazing. But so sometimes we pivot and we don't know why. And, life will pave the way and tell us why pretty fast. So, and I love that you said that it's not a big thing. It can be small things. We can make these small adjustments. I think that's the thing we have to be open to doing.
Yeah. That's the thing. It's so many little turns of the dial. Noticing how I feel. Is this good? Is this not? And then giving yourself permission to move with it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's what so much of this is about, is permission.
Yeah.
permission to own what we want, permission to lean into it, permission to make changes, permission to say, I liked this and now I don't. Like you're allowed to change your mind.
Yeah, and it can be hard for a lot of entrepreneurs to feel that because we have customers, we have, there's all these things just like you did with the building, right? And so there's a way. There's always a way. Do we need to rebuild everything or not? The answer is yes. I can get 100 guys to come in and do this, right? So, but you have to decide where's your inflection point of what you're willing to do. So there's always a way
Yeah.
to make that choice, whatever that looks like for you.
Kind of curious. I don't know that this space is talked about much, but talk to me a little bit about like the expectations during and maybe after a pivot. Like
Mm.
the expectations that we have for ourselves or how we think it's going to go or timelines. We want to, we love to control time, because we're all Dr. Strange around here. Talk to me about adjusting expectations or like, did you have any expectations when you were launching HerCsuite that didn't go as planned, but then ended up going the way that it was supposed to?
Well, launching HerCsuite, it was very small. It was 11 women came together, two groups. So it was pretty small until we did it for about 5 months it until it wasn't 11 women. So it gave me a little bit of a runway. But I think the different products I had at one point, um, originally I was vice president to C-suite, and then I added a layer for director to VP, and it was all corporate. It was very corporate. And what's interesting is HerCsuite is super not corporate anymore. It's mostly entrepreneurs, it's women in the second half, but women that are, there's probably 10%, 20%, and then the rest are entrepreneurs. But when I started, it was flip at least, right? And I added in to try to meet the need. I decided I would do this mid-tier career, and it did not work as I was hoping. And after a certain time, I had to decide this isn't going to work, and I'm going to change it to be this to better meet more people where they are. But it's the moment of you think, well, I'm going to add this thing, and it makes total sense, and people are coming to me, and they're in this place, and they're going to need it, until you know what is it that they really need. And maybe it's not that. So I think that's some of the things that you learn as you're making the pivot. You think it's going to go one way, and you add the thing, and then you have to pay attention to the customer. Is she getting what she needs, or he? Is it what they want? And if it's not, then give yourself permission to say, okay, what are we going to do about it? Right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Gosh, I've built a lot of things that went nowhere. And it's frustrating
Yeah.
at best because you put a lot of time, energy, and effort into something that you're very, very excited about, that then it's crickets and you're like, what? And then you do that 3 or 4 times and you're like, okay, I'm starting to see that the common denominator is me. And
Yeah.
maybe I suck. And that's
No.
rarely the case. The thing is, like, something that I had to learn the hard way is don't build something out 100% and then tell everybody about it.
Oh, yeah.
Where
Yes.
if you invite people to be along the way, you ask questions, you have
Yep.
some beta testers, like you get input. Like you said, is this what they really need, or is this what I think that they want?
Mm-hmm.
That helps to actually form something that there's a real need and there's a real market and there's a real buyer for, versus, I mean, it really truly could be on paper the greatest idea in the world, but if nobody wants to buy it or you're not in front of the right people, it's just a really awesome Word doc.
Really awesome Word doc is really, yes, there, and it can stay there, and you could do something with it in the future. Maybe it's something you give away to someone else who might make it better. You never know. So
Yeah,
yeah.
for sure. I'll share real quick. One of the expectations that I had to shift when I pivoted from my agency to speaking was something that you actually talked about earlier on in this episode, which was I needed to go at it alone for a little while. but I didn't. I carried my freelance team over with me, thinking that we were just going to hit the ground running at the same level, at the same cadence, at the same, like we're just shifting gears, right? We're just going to keep going. And looking back, I should have readjusted that much, much sooner because I had more help than I had capacity, and I had more help than I had income coming in. And it turned me upside down for a little while, and it sucked to let people go, like brilliant, amazing people that are still in the sidelines hanging out, like ready for me to bring them back on. But I don't know. I just felt like we were just going to run at the same speed. And I had to adjust the expectation that, like, hey, I'm legitimately starting over here. That's a hard pill to swallow, but it was the right one. I just I had a mask on over my eyeballs, and I was not willing to admit that, like, hey, I needed to slim things down, as I made the pivot and started over again.
I had the same thing, only I was way in, like 4 years in, and one of my original founding members and friend, and good mentor, and all the things. And we were having some food out, and she said, "What are you doing?" I was like, "What do you mean? I'm going to make it all happen. It's all going to work." And she was like, "You're crazy. By the end of the year, you're going to make this change, and it's going to happen, because otherwise this is not." And she was right. And sometimes we just need that hard conversation, that external voice. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Which was what she did as a gift to me. And I had to make a really hard decision, and it was super hard. And going back to like that grounding of like, okay, I'm going to do this on my own, and it's going to be fine. And then I'll build back up. And it's hard. It's hard making those choices, but those are also pivots, because you are listening to what you need to do and not just staying the course. That's the worst thing you can do, is just keep going and going
Yeah.
until you really can't get out of what you did or
Yeah.
what I did,
Well, that's
it's
the
upside
reality.
down. Yeah.
That's the reality. And whether
Yeah.
that's financially or emotionally or
Sure.
your health or your
Yeah.
time, like
Yeah.
sometimes if when we don't listen, we get put in a position where it can't be undone. And
Yeah.
it's
Yes.
it's a failed moment, doesn't equate to you being a failure. But it's inevitable, especially if all the signs are there. So pivoting sooner, being honest with yourself sooner, making those moves sooner. It's not just, and I'm thinking this out loud, Natalie. It's not just about even you, but it's about the health of this business that you're creating. Like the business is an extension of who we are, of
Yeah.
course. But if you're here because you have a mission, you have a purpose, you have people to help create an impact with, all of that rides on your willingness to pivot and to make those micro adjustments to have the impact, to be able to have the impact. Because otherwise, if you just keep pushing through, you're not going to have the space or the capacity, and sometimes not even the business to be able to do that.
Yeah, and I think it leads to burnout. I mean, quite frankly, if you don't pivot and recognize, and maybe it's taking a pause. I took a very long pause to figure out, what is it? What is the makeup? What is it that I want to do? How am I going to do it? Right. And coming back to things I thought I didn't want to do. And I'm like, no, this is what I want to do. So
Hmm.
sometimes that pause and then pivoting back is also good. Right. So I think you just have to give yourself the grace to make changes. And listen, the world is changing so fast. No one notices changes anymore. I change my banner on LinkedIn all the time. And I think, oh, everyone's going to notice. Nobody notices, just me. I just like to change it.
Yep.
So you can follow me on LinkedIn and see. You're like, oh, Natalie, she just changed it again. Yeah, I did, because I like doing that. I like it. It's fun for me.
Yeah, absolutely. What am I'm going to wrap us up here today with a question. What are you currently pivoting?
Well, it's kind of exciting.
Ooh.
So I have been, you talk about like putting something down and you keep getting drawn to it and you keep getting drawn to it. And I am working on something called Collab 3, which is matching 3 women together to do something together, whether it's launch a new business product together. And the key is timing, 90 days, but it's accountability. So it could be people getting on a board. It could be, I'm thinking about all the products that I do, but Collab 3 is something that I keep trying to like walk away from. And then it's like, then I'm doing something with 2 other women and we're doing a webinar and it's like, oh, we're doing a Collab 3. And then I'm going to New York, I'm going to speak and it's, oh, I'm doing a Collab 3. So I'm really excited about it. I think that, creating a new way of a new economy and the way that we hire each other, hire women, do business with women. We have the power to do that. We have the power to shift, make a big shift.
Absolutely. That's phenomenal.
It's a framework. It's a framework. It's not a product. It's just everything's going to run on it for me.
Yes.
It's a philosophy.
That's beautiful. I love that it keeps creeping in and it keeps exciting you. You keep getting curious about it. It keeps showing up in your world. Friends, this is a prime example of it's time for Natalie to move with it. She's pivoting and doing something that this seems like the right season to do. Whereas 3, 4, certainly 6 years ago, it wasn't time yet. It wasn't developed. What the things that you needed were not yet present in your world, but now it is. Very exciting. So cool. Natalie, where can we find and connect with you to learn more about what you do and what you offer?
Thank you so much. On LinkedIn, if anyone is listening to this and they want to get in touch with me, or HerCsuite.com, those are the 2 best places. So thanks for asking. And listen to your show. Listen to our podcast.
Women Leaders on the Move. I highly recommend that you subscribe to Natalie's podcast. I'll put the link to our episode down in the bottom show notes as well, so that you can easily go listen. We're talking about getting unstuck over there and making those gutsy moves. So continuation and a perfect pair to what we just talked about today. Final question for you, my friend. What's gutsy mean to you?
I think gutsy means that we're willing to listen to our heart and take action in small ways. Yeah. I think we just got to listen to the message. Don't close the window, fly through the window.
Natalie said something that I thought was really profound. And she said, sometimes we pivot and we don't know why. Life will pave the way and tell us why pretty fast. This is an exercise on trust, friend. I mean, you don't have to stay in something just because that's the way that it's always been. And will people dislike what you're doing? Maybe. Are you going to let a couple people down? Possibly. But the difference this time is you're not letting yourself down. There's something new calling you forward. Trust wherever is guiding you, because whatever you need, it's on the other side. If you've been kind of on the fence and you are exploring or align, but you're not quite sure if it's the right next move, then let's book a clarity session. This is a free 30-minute session where you and I can figure out what the right next path for you is. You can book that in the show notes below or by going to LauraAura.com/clarity. Come say hello. I'm on social media. My handle is @LauraAura across the board. And as always, until I see you next time, stay gutsy.